think people need to stay focused. When you are in so much drama and stress, sometimes you're paying attention to too many details. Sometimes you're getting too distracted, and sometimes you just need to look down and just focus on what you can do right now. Not about what's going to happen tomorrow, because I'm gonna tell you, I didn't think I had a future outside of my daughter, you know. I am Nikki Brown, and this is my Red Lip memoir.
Her name was Alicia Jean, and she was born 12 weeks premature. And when she was born, funny enough, they told me that she wouldn't be able to cry, she wouldn't be screaming, that she probably wouldn't be breathing because she was so early. And when she came out, she was screaming and crying and punching at the medical doctor. She was just all over the place, and she was the loudest baby in the NICU. She was tiny. She was 2 pounds, 5 ounces, but she just had a fight in her. In that moment, God let me know that her life would be temporary, but I asked if I could just be her mom for a little while, because I had already lost two sons, you know. She was my 3rd pregnancy, and she was the only one that survived the birth. And so after trying to be a mother for so long, I just wanted an opportunity to parent, to mother her. But we were just happy. I was just happy to be around her. I called her my little tuka bean, because when she was tiny, she just looked like a little bean, like she was so small, and so I just started calling her Tuka Bean. And so we were happy to see each other. We were just always happy together. And so when she finally got home, life just started to get easier for her. She was, you know, we treated her like she had no issues. Like, she carried around a little backpack with her equipment in it, and but she was you know, for me, she was as normal as any other baby. She, you know, she had a little attitude like her mom. You know, I would remember just telling her, you know, stop, Alicia, stop. And she just looked at me like, no. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, she had such an attitude. My mom was like, you know, I prayed for this. I prayed for you to have a child as bad as you were. This is good, you know. So she was such a spirit, and she had a light around her. But every day raising her, I just knew the day was going to come when she wasn't going to be there anymore. I took her to Children's Home Health World, where they take care of kids with disabilities. And it was only her 4th time being there, because she had at-home health care. But I could take her there for emergency, so I took her there. And ironically, on the way to there, you know, I just felt all day that something was different that day. Even when I woke up that morning, I just laid in bed, and something just didn't feel right about that day. I was just like, something is different today. Am I forgetting? Is today supposed to be something? Like, was I supposed to be somewhere today? I feel like I'm forgetting something, or something is supposed to happen today. But I couldn't figure out what it was. And I got Alicia dressed that morning, because I knew how to take her to the daycare. And, you know, she was just very, like, clingy that morning. And I was just like, Alicia, I need to get going. Like, you know, mommy can't hold you all morning. I need to get you dressed. I need to get dressed. And then on the car ride there, I remember stopping at the lights at 72nd and Cass Street. I remember looking back in the back seat, and she was in her car seat, and I looked at her. And just the way the sun was shining on her face, and the way she looked at me, I said to her, I said, baby, you're looking at mommy like you'll never see me again. I'll pick you up. You're only going for a little couple hours. And she just looked at me, and she looked away, and I was just like, Alicia, don't look at mommy like that. I'm gonna pick you up. And then I drove her and dropped her off, and I handed her to the nurse. And ultimately, I handed it to the nurse that actually ended up taking her life. And that was hard for me, because I felt like I handed her over. But And as I handed her to her, she just, she was crying and she was crying. And then she just stopped and she just looked away from me. And I said, "I'm sorry, baby, I'm coming back." And the nurse said, it's okay, I got it. And I told her at that moment, I said, "I just want you to make sure she only has one medication to take today. You just got to give it to her feeding tube. Please don't do any central line cares," which was the chest tube that went to her chest. And she said, "Oh no, I got it. I got it." And and we had it in her file there that no one could give central line care. Central line care was for nurses at home, for her healthcare professionals that she has in the clinics, and for mom to do. Like, no one else could do it. And it was in her file. And I showed her the medication. I said, "This medication, which was cholestyramine, has to go into her feeding tube, and you just got to pump it slowly over 1 minute." The nurse said, "Oh, I already know. We have other kids here on that." "Okay, well, great. I'll see you later." And I dropped her off, and it was only like 20 minutes to 9. And I got to work, busy Saturday morning in the branch. And I heard my phone ringing, and I usually turn my cell phone off. And at 9:20, I got the call from the nurse and said, "Alicia had a seizure. She had a seizure, and you told me to give her the medication, and I did what you told me to do." And I said, "Wait, what do you mean? What are you talking about?" She said, "You told me to put in her central line." I said, "I would have never have told you that. You can't touch her central line. That medication can't go in her. Did you put in her central line? What did you do?" And she said, "I did what you told me to do." And I said, You couldn't." And I just hung up the phone. And I looked at my assistant manager, and she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I think she might have killed my baby." And she said, "What?" And I just said, "I gotta go." And I handed her all my keys. She took my cash. I sped to Children's Health World. And I got there, and there were police cars everywhere, and there's things. And I just ran inside, and I said, "Where's my baby at?" And the nurse was just crying. And she said, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." And I said, "Where is my baby?" And they said, "The ambulance took her. She's at Children's." And when I got to the Children's Hospital emergency, I ran in there, and it was like everyone just stopped. And the woman at the front desk looked so scared. She just looked so scared. And she said, Are you Alicia's mom?" And I said, "Yes, my baby's here." And she just said, "Okay, could you just sit down?" And I said, "No, I need to go back there." She said, "Oh, yeah, okay, could you just please sit down?" And she's crying, and I don't know why. And I'm just like, "Can I just go back?" But no one will look at me. And so I got on the phone, and I called her doctor, and I just said, what would happen if cholestyramine goes in your central line? Just tell me what will happen. Will she survive this? And the doctor said, "I can't tell you what will happen. I don't know. I've never heard that happen before." When I got to the hospital, everyone was waiting for me, but no one would look at me or say anything to me. And I heard them whispering that I was the mother, I was the mother. And I was just sitting in the waiting room by myself. And then when they finally let me back, I seen a room of about 20-some medical professionals in line to give my daughter CPR. Everyone was just in line waiting. And the doctors were running around crazy, and they just let me sit in the hallway, and I seen her chest being pumped. And in that moment, I knew that this was going to be the time that she wouldn't survive, because it had never looked or felt like this. So that was my deepest moment, realizing that they ended up closing off the whole ICU floor, and my family was just up there, and they're pumping in heparin, and the doctor finally just comes out to me and says, "I need you to go in here and hold your baby's hand, because I don't know if I can make her survive this, but maybe she will if you're with her." He said, "I've been on the phone with poison control, and there's no antidote for this, because this is something that cannot be given intravenously. This isn't a drug that's meant for this. They have no cure for this sort of thing, and I'm trying my best, and I need you to at least be here with your daughter in case she doesn't make it through this." And I said, "Okay." So I went and held her hand.
it was, the look I seen in her eyes was like 19 months of fear and struggle. Just everything overwhelmed. Like, the look in her eyes wasn't the eyes that I seen in it, and it wasn't her spirit there anymore. I could see that she was done. And when I looked and seen that she just done, I just realized that she needed permission. And that's the hardest thing, to give someone you love permission to go. But she had been fighting for an hour and 40 minutes just so that I could be there with her. The best thing that I did for myself is to have conversations with God often, because no one else could really understand what I was going through. And honestly, I never looked for advice. I didn't want anyone's sympathy. I just wanted to feel like I wasn't alone in that. And so I prayed often. I spoke scripture over my daughter often. And I wouldn't have changed that. It's funny, my faith got stronger in losing my child than I thought it would. I never had a moment when I was angry with God, as far as a why me kind of moment. I had moments where I would scream and cry and say, well, did I not do enough? Like, I thought I was showing you I could be a good mom. Or there would be times I would cry and just say, I just don't know how much more, I could do, or do you understand how much it hurts? And man, I remember one day in the shower just crying, like saying, God, you hurt me so bad. Like, you just hurt me. Like, you took her from me. And I remember saying, I wish you knew how this feels, how bad it hurts. And God just said, I do know what it feels like to lose a child. And in that moment, I realized, sometimes we blame God for so much, and He knew, but He knew because He was there. He was seeing the pain. And many times people think faith is about going to church every Sunday, and it has nothing to do with it. If you never stepped a foot into a church door, it has nothing to do with it. It's about believing and trusting and loving God, even when He's doing things in your life that doesn't make Him lovable to you. I got tired of burying children. I have 3 children in grave sites I go to visit. But even still, I love God. And even still, I know that He has another child prepared for me. And I look at what Alicia was able to do in her short 19 months, and I'm just thankful that He chose me to have her. Because I don't know that it would have been the same if she would have had another mother. And I know I wouldn't have been the same if I would have had a different child. I know I wouldn't. She changed my life. I didn't know how I was going to make it to dinner. I didn't know how I was going to make it the next hour. I felt like my heart was disintegrating inside of itself. Like, not that it was being ripped out, that it was slowly, like just melting away. And I didn't know how I was going to make it through that. And in the midst of all that, my husband now entered my life. He entered my life. He entered my life, and he knew I would be his wife when I didn't even know whether I was gonna make it the next day. He and I were friends. We had a lot of similar interests. We loved sports. We loved boxing. We were friends. We had no romantic, inklings towards each other. I remember us just saying one time, just vocalizing, say, we're good as just friends, right? And we both say, yeah, I think friends is a good thing. And he just never left. He just always knew, even when I didn't. And so, you know, God had told me one night when I was screaming and crying after my daughter passed away that he promised me that if I could just get through this, that he would give me more happiness than I had ever felt before, but I had to get through this. And I never thought it would come because I had been unhappy for so many years. And then that happened. And then I remember on September 7th of last year, you know, walking down the aisle to Darrell Brown, and it all made sense. You know, I lost my first home to foreclosure, and I have a bigger home. And then I didn't know if I would even be able to keep my job, and I got promoted twice, you know, and I didn't know how I was going to pay bills. I just didn't know anything at that time. I didn't know if I was going to be able to keep my mind, keep my sanity, and I've been able to somehow minister to women, and I didn't even know how I made it through, you know, and I was able to walk down the aisle to a husband that absolutely adored me, who, you know, prays for me, prays over me. And so now I look at it and I know that I'll never have Alicia back, but I know that I will have the family that that God has destined for me, because I already have the husband that he's destined for me. And so I know I'll be a mother again. And so I'm just waiting for that day to come. I couldn't even see straight. Like, I decided that I was only going to allow people that were positive in my life. And if you ever made me mad or things like that, I was willing to cut you off. Like, for me, I felt like, you know, I've lost my daughter. It doesn't matter if you never talk to me again. I'll lose you, that's fine, you know. And so one day I realized, I said, you know, I remember crying and just saying, my mom and my dad, I'll never be enough for them. And I was just crying to my husband and all these things. And I was so angry, and I was like, you know, I don't know if I'll ever talk to my mom again. I stopped calling her less and less. When she called, I'd hurry up and get off the phone. And this is, 2 or 3 years after my daughter passed away. And one day it just came to me, I just said, only a person that is hurting could be that kind of way. Only a person that is in pain can treat a person that they love that way. And I had to really ask myself, well, what has she gone through? What was her mother like to her? Because, of course, my grandmother was a beautiful woman to me. That doesn't mean that's the mother that she experienced, you know. And I had my mom over at my house one day, and I remember her saying, your grandmother wasn't like that with us. She wasn't a mom like that to me, you know. She said, you all love her and act like she was so great, but she wasn't that for me. And so I realized that my mom only raised me the way that she was shown how. She raised me on how to be a studious person, how to work hard, how to be in public, you know, how to walk the line, but she didn't know how to be affectionate. She didn't know how to give that because she never got it. And she had been wanting it. And so I just was like, you know what? I get it. I'm sorry. And for a long time, I had been angry with both my parents over their relationship and how they let their relationship affect the way they parented me. I would just be like, you know what? They couldn't get past each other long enough to just focus on me. It was always about them and their drama. Until I got some drama of my own and had a bad relationship of my own and tried to parent with somebody that I couldn't stand. And I said, oh, okay, this is why it's like this, because it is hard. It is hard to have to raise a child with someone that you have this much history and pain with. And so I was able to forgive both my parents for all the hurt that they caused me. And I just was like, okay, I just get it. And it goes back to that motto, to love without judgment. They did their best. They did their best. And so now I just don't hold people up to as high as expectations as far as emotional expectations, because a lot of these things are learned behaviors. You really have to commit to, you have to really commit to being
You know, a person who can listen and love people. You have to, it takes work. It doesn't come easily for a lot of us because we weren't shown how to do it. So I think now, it just, for me, I cut people breaks. I just cut people breaks because you don't know what their story is. You don't know what they've been through. And so in my spirit now, I'm just more at ease because in the grand scheme of things, you know, what does it all mean? You know, it doesn't, a lot of the things we think are such life, you know, it's just the biggest deal ever. It's really not a big deal, you know. And once you've lost something that important, you really realize when people start crying and whining about certain things, you're really like, okay, that's not that big of a deal, you know. So it just puts life into perspective. And so, yeah. After that experience, God told me that my story wasn't mine to have. He gave it to me because I can handle it, but it wasn't mine to have, and that I needed to use it. I needed to use it for other women. And so now I just try to make sure that I'm aware of where I'm at spiritually so that I can be something for another woman, you know. Even if they just need to talk or get something off their spirit, or even if they just need to be around someone that's going to just, you know, not judge them and just, you know, then that's what I need to be. Because I just, like I said, you just never know what someone else's story is. And so, yeah. 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 All my experiences, you know, I'm just like, you know what? I just need to remain humble and love people without judgment, and God will take care of me. And just always remember too, I tell people whenever they're in a hard time, remember this is just a small portion of your life. It's a small portion of your story. And the farther you get away from that pain, the easier it'll be. Pain will always be there, but it won't be as bad tomorrow. What didn't kill you today can't kill you tomorrow. You know, you just gotta keep getting to the tomorrows, you know. And so yeah, there's days that I still cry, and then there's weeks that go by that I don't cry, but I always feel my daughter, you know, I always feel her. And it's not always sad, and there's sometimes that it is, but the pain is never gonna be as bad as the day that I had to walk down that hallway and watch them trying to save my baby.